Invisible cars, DNA swapping, ice palaces, Madonna. Die Another Day is either a misunderstood Bond milestone or the franchise's most extravagant misfire. Released for the series' 40th anniversary, it tried to honor the past while surfing into the future, literally. But was it too much of everything? Or is there a method to the madness? Let's reassess Pierce Brosnan's final outing as 007 and ask, beneath the CGI and the chaos, is there a Bond worth saving? Hi, this is Dan.
And Tom.
Of SpyMovieNavigator.com and our show Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. And we're happy to bring back Vicky to help us figure this one out. Welcome back, Vicky.
I'm happy to be back.
All right.
Very good to have you here.
Yeah. All right. Pierce Brosnan went from a stellar GoldenEye debut as James Bond with a great storyline, plot development, and a character interest in a true Bond spy movie to Die Another Day, which was almost a sci-fi movie. So let's see if there are any real diamonds in Die Another Day.
Yeah, no, there aren't any. Well, maybe one thing. I guess I'll say later. But other than that, there's no diamonds in this one for me.
All right, why is it hated so much?
I don't actually hate it, but it's not a go-to film for me. And I am a big, huge Brosnan fan. So,
Yeah, I know. Wow. I know you like this one better than I do. I know that. I mean, why do I hate it? I mean, I could be talking for hours. So I'm just gonna let's just go forward. Man. I don't like this movie.
Apparently not. All right, thanks. All right. In a nutshell, this is a James Bond movie, pretty much like no other James Bond movie, and that may not mean in a good way, as you can hear already. This movie crammed a whole lot of funk into its 2-hour and 13-minute run. Like, we get an invisible car, the ultimate cue car gadget, a villain who is Korean but has some surgery and other tech devices that make him look and sound British. And oh yeah, he has tons of money, of course, and a diamond-faced henchman for the first time.
Hopefully for the last time.
Probably will be. And a huge space weapon that requires a lot of diamonds. Now, throw in a very solid pre-title sequence, which it was, that morphs into a more science fiction movie, a little CGI, which was a true low point of this movie, some inconsistent writing in terms of dialogue, and an overall feel the viewer gets while watching the movie, and you get Die Another Day.
Yeah, and only one of those things in your list was a positive, Dan.
Yeah, I know. All right. That's the way it really is, I think, and that's how most people feel about this movie. But there are some elements in here. Other James Bond movies come to mind that teeter on the edge like this one, like Moonraker, though Moonraker was a pretty well-received Bond movie, and it did well at the box office.
Yeah, I think that's because it was fine until that fight in space.
Yeah,
I mean, even the battle inside the space station was fine. And the first part of Moonraker was actually a pretty decent James Bond movie. It was when they got into that space fight outside that it kind of lost it for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dig into all of this and more and our reasons why Die Another Day might be just a good name for a James Bond flick. Often James Bond movies welcome the excess. Most of the movies are unbelievable in every sense of the word, and this one is particularly unbelievable. Die Another Day is one of the most divisive Bond films with both strong positives and glaring negatives.
All right. There are things that viewers like, though, Vicky and Tom. Come on. Right? We like a couple of things even in this movie.
I like one of the things.
The pre-title sequence is fantastic. We like this, right? In fact, we have a full episode out just on the pre-title sequence called Die Another Day, pre-title sequence decoded. That's a great element in this movie.
Yeah, I agree. And to me, it's the only part that works in this movie. I mean, you've got the surfing on the surfboards to the Puncheon coast of North Korea. That's pretty cool. I mean, it was filmed in Hawaii, but they make you believe it's Korea. Yeah, sure. And we hadn't seen this before, and it was great surfing. You know, so it creates this intriguing scenario because we hadn't seen that before. And we feel the tension, and we're looking forward to what's going to happen next. And so to me, that initial opening on the surfboards and really the whole pre-title itself are the one success in this movie.
Yeah, and James Bond is very cool in the pre-title sequence. Brosnan does a really good job with this here, I think.
And don't forget the hovercraft chase. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
really well done.
The
Yeah, that's
hovercraft chase was fantastic.
yeah. That part of the pre-title sequence is the best part of the whole movie, for me.
The cinematography in that was fabulous as well. And it had never been done before. Whoever saw a hovercraft chase before? All right. Now, let's look into the title sequence. I actually like the title sequence as it reveals part of the story, which is kind of neat, except for Madonna's music. Overall, it was pretty solid, but I would skip the Madonna music. So, all in all, it's a pretty good start, right? We got good pre-title sequence. We got a good title sequence. Hey.
I agree. It's a clever use of storytelling. Rather than having another 20 minutes of dialogue, carrying the story forward through the title song was highly effective.
Yeah, I think so too. And the cinematography, like I just mentioned, and the production sets, I think they were first rate. This was certainly a highlight of the movie. Some great camera work.
You're talking about in the pre-title sequence. It was first rate.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, and well, yeah. I mean, the pre-title sequence was fabulous, as we just said. I mean, certainly it was a highlight, and I think there's great camera work in the hovercraft chase. I actually think there's great camera work in the sword fight, the Iceland chase, and in general, good camera work and cinematography. So overall, the movie is visually, I think, appealing. So kudos to David Tattersall, the cinematographer here, and production design by Peter Lamont. I mean, fantastic.
Yeah, so I'll give you that this is a visually nice movie to look at.
Okay.
Because they've always done a great job with cinematography and production, except for their use of CGI.
Well, yes. Yeah. Well, the CGI part was an issue. Now, everyone hates the CGI part. Lee Tamahori even hated the CGI thing. And he looked back reflectively saying he wished he could have changed that now. So, hey, everybody agrees to that. Now, let's look at the music. The music by David Arnold, it had mixed reviews, which I guess I could see. The Madonna theme, well, I kind of told you my idea of that. I'd say trash it, but I did not like it.
I don't mind the title song. You can't really belt it out like Thunderball or Goldfinger, but I think it fits with the tone of the film that they wanted to achieve.
Okay. All right. So you're giving Madonna a break here. All right. Okay.
I am, but cue the music, who do all the Bond music.
Yes.
Right.
That's the only song that they will not play.
Wow.
I love those
So
guys.
that probably does say something, actually.
Well, now is it because they couldn't get the rights to it, or they didn't want to touch it?
I think because it uses certain technology, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
If you listen to the voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good song not to play.
Yeah.
All right. Some of the score by David Arnold has some really good moments. It's a departure, I think, from the traditional Bond kind of score, and many others are better, but many did appreciate his work here. The hovercraft scene has solid music behind it. So we mentioned how great the scene was, but it's got good music behind it too, as does the Cuba scene. I think that's terrific too. And there are moments. So there are moments in this movie where David Arnold's work is fantastic. Now, Casino Royale, that score by David Arnold is better. But there are moments.
Casino Royale was better in every aspect.
Casino Royale is one of the top Bond movies ever made.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's look at some callbacks and Easter eggs. I love the callbacks to other Bond movies and missions. It just connects the character and what we know has already happened as viewers and as followers of James Bond missions. And here we have some. The main one is when, of course, Jinx walks out of the water in a bikini with a knife on her left hip. Obviously, a callback to Ursula Andress' Honey Rider and Dr. No. That was a nice homage.
I'll give you that was a nice shot. That wasn't in the pre-title, and it is a good callback. So there is a callback that I'm going to talk about a little bit later that I absolutely hated, but I like this one. This is good.
Really? Okay. All right. Now, there were also references to classic gadgets. The seagull disguise wetsuit, Goldfinger, the Bell jetpack, Thunderball, and an updated version of the rebreather from Thunderball is used here too. We even see a disassembled Acrostar jet from Octopussy in Q's lab. Q's little snooper dog from A View to a Kill is in Q's lab, just sitting there on the floor here in the movie Die Another Day. So I love that kind of stuff. That stuff is cool.
Yeah, even the crocodile transport vehicle from Octopussy is in Q's lab here. So
Yeah.
cool. So many memories were brought back to life. Even the attache case that was used in From Russia with Love makes a wonderful appearance. And let's not forget Rosa Klebb's knife blade shoes. Remember, Bond picks one up and smells it. What?
Yeah,
Okay,
that,
now
that got me when he did that. It's like, oh, okay, but it was humorous, and I thought, hey, they should have cut that down. I thought, no, they should have let that in. That was good. That was good. I liked
yeah,
it.
see, I was with the memorabilia in that lab until Bond smells that shoe.
Oh,
Now the
that
thing
was
is,
right.
that isn't Rosa Klebb's shoe. That's not Morzany's shoe either, right? If you look at it, Morzany was wearing boots when he took out Kronstein, and Klebb wore tie-up shoes. So many of the props we see in this scene take us back to an earlier movie, but they weren't the real props. Some of them were and some of them weren't. Another one was the golf bag we saw. It brings us back to Goldfinger, but that bag was not in the movie. It's very different than the one that Goldfinger or James Bond had. So I'm putting together a video trying to tie these Easter eggs back to the original, but we're going to have a willing suspension of disbelief on a few of them because when I do the side by side, you're going to see that, wait a minute, that's not the same thing.
Yeah.
But it evokes the memory. I would bet that 90% of the people that have watched Die Another Day don't realize that that shoe was neither Rosa Klebb's nor Morzany's.
A lot of people watching Die Another Day don't even pay attention to the gadgets that he's walking by, except for the shoe, because he smells the shoe. So a lot of the other stuff is just like sitting there.
Or the rocket
So,
belt thing. That's that one
yeah.
hits you in
Right,
the face.
okay.
Yeah.
Don't touch that. All right. Yeah. So yeah, this shoe smell thing was a little weird, but I liked it, and I'm glad they actually left it in. There are a whole lot more Easter eggs like in this Q lab. Does all of this or any of this make Die Another Day worth watching?
I got my answer.
There are really spectacular callbacks to previous missions, and connecting this Bond with all the other missions that came before, I think, is good. I always like that in Bond movies.
I love an Easter egg. As fans, we are like kids in a toy shop spotting them. It's a nod
Yeah.
to the past. And I think adding these on the 40th anniversary of Eon Bond films was a great idea.
Yep, I
Yeah,
agree.
there
I
you
agree
go.
with you there.
See, so there's some good things in this movie. All right. Now, look closely on the shelf just sitting there in Q's lab that we didn't mention is a gold bar. Yeah, from Goldfinger.
Well, again, that's another one of those that might not have
You
exactly
don't know.
been
You
in
can't
the
see the
movie.
serial number of it sitting on
It's
the shelf.
hinting
Come
at
on,
it.
Tom.
It's
Give it a
hinting.
break. Anyway, there are more. But this is a tremendous device used here, and it's certainly a highlight of the movie.
Yeah,
All right.
and I'm criticizing a little bit here because they're not using the actual. But unless you study this, it brings you back to the other movie, which is what it's trying to do. So it does its purpose well.
Exactly. It's the concept here that
Yeah.
is good. All right. Action sequences. This movie delivers a sense of high energy and action at many junctures of the movie and gives us our first ever hovercraft chase scene. So come on. There's some good stuff here.
And that again is really the highlight of this movie for me.
The hovercraft chase was just long enough to make it interesting, suspenseful, and riveting. I mean, you had to watch the hovercraft chase. You couldn't think, oh, yeah, that's kind of boring. No, it was good. And we get a couple of good Bond quips there, including,
Saved by the Bell.
come on, good writing
Yeah.
and good action.
I love it. I love the fact that the chase was done at Holywell Bay in Cornwall in England, and it's a fantastic beach which I visited a number of years ago. And all the buildings and the crosses that were on
Yeah.
the beach are still there.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm so jealous that you live in the UK instead of here in the
Yeah.
US because it's so much easier for you to get to some of these things. And I'm also glad you get to take advantage of them both with and without the 007 GB fan club. I mean, it's really good to see. And, you know, those clubs over there in Europe do a great job of being able to get to all these scenes.
Yeah. Yeah. I was looking to talk about the chase scene in Iceland. That was fantastic. Between, of course, Zau's hot green Jaguar and Bond's invisible Aston Martin. Other than the invisible part, that was pretty cool. It was well done. I mean, lots of excitement and very Bond-like. And hey, Tom and I got to actually wash that car. From the Ian Fleming Foundation folks have access to that car. It's in their collection. And Tom and I actually washed that car. I sat in that car. I played with the machine gun in that car. Oh, it was good.
We didn't go sliding on any ice in it, though.
No, no. It was the actual car they used in Greenland, too. All right. The sword fights were decent and entertaining, I think. Although I wasn't thrilled with the sword fight thing, but I thought it was a good element.
I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I actually thought it was well done.
Okay, there you go. Wow, Tom's saying so many nice things about this movie. It's hard to believe he hates it.
I started that with I didn't really like it, but I thought it was well done.
I thought it was really well done, and I thought it was a good part of the film. Just ditch Madonna in this particular scene.
There you go.
Yeah, ditch
All
Madonna
right.
from the whole movie.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. She was superfluous in that scene. Yeah. Toby Stevens as Gustav Graves, I thought was actually pretty good, as was Rosamund Pike as Miranda Frost. Halle Berry as Jinx, well, okay, that's fine. And Rick Yune as Zhao, Kenneth Zhang's General Moon, and Brosnan as Bond. I think they were all terrific. I don't think anybody could critique them.
I agree with you. Again, this is a James Bond movie. The acting is likely to be good.
Yeah,
the big problem this one has is that story.
Good casting. Well, yeah, the writing is an issue. After GoldenEye.
Yeah, but the acting I think was good pretty much all around.
Yeah, good. Tom's loving this movie.
Guys, this is why this film ranks lower for me, and it's because of the acting.
Wow.
There are certain scenes that make me cringe.
Oh.
And it's so over the top. Now, take the scene where Graves lands outside Buckingham Palace wearing a parachute. This is an awful scene. It is wooden, over the top, and totally unbelievable, especially that it's the reporters. Watch the reporters who are trying to interview him. Rewatch it again, and you'll see what I mean. They just don't sound natural as a natural reporter would be.
After an entrance like that, you can't be surprised you're being called a self-publicising adrenaline junkie, can you?
I prefer the term adventurer.
We've been hearing rumours about the Icarus space program. What's the big secret?
And don't get me started on Jinx Jones. Yes.
All right. So for me, that you say the interviews, and when I watch this movie again in 5 or 6 years or 10 years or whatever it is, I'm going to look at that because I hate that scene for different reasons. And I'm going to eventually rewatch this thing because I do want to catch up on what you were saying with the reporters. But for me, this is an Easter egg attempt trying to pay homage to one of the best practical stunts ever done in a James Bond movie. And to me, it falls flat.
Well, Rick Sylvester leaping off the 2,000-foot cliff. Yeah, this is not that. But so the reporters were weak. In general, though, the main characters were good acting, though, right, Vicky?
I think that Brosnan held his own in a very badly scripted film.
What did you think of John Cleese as Q?
I don't mind Q. I don't mind him. He's a bit faulty towers, but that's
who he is.
But that's what he does. Yeah, I don't mind him. It's for me. It's Halle Berry is my biggest downfall of that film.
What is it about her performance that you didn't like?
Well, where do I start? I mean, okay. She, for me, is the worst Bond girl in the franchise. Her lines are awful.
That's not her fault.
No. I know she's supposed to have attitude, but generally, when at the end of the film, when Bond saves the girl, I wasn't particularly bothered if he didn't bother saving her. That's how it was for me. She had some awful lines. I didn't like the line where she said,
"Your mama," and she told me to tell you she's really disappointed in you.
It was just...
the writing.
I think the writing was poorly done for her, and I don't think Halle Berry, even though she's an Oscar-winning actress, could save that role. And you'll find there are a number of Bond fans out there on the community who would agree how bad she is.
Okay.
Yeah. I think her best moment was coming out of the water, but Yeah, the dialogue, the writing, it limps. In fact, Al Lincoln has a leg to walk on, actually. So it's
Oh,
worse than limping.
jeez. Jeez.
It's like, holy crap.
Yeah, see,
But
and
yeah,
for me, I go kind of hot and cold on her. Sometimes I like her, but I totally understand where you're coming from, Vicky. And I think a big part of the problem was that script wasn't good. And for some reason, they wrote a script for a Jinx spinoff. And thank God that was never made.
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So, I mean, the whole movie is bold in lots of ways, and sometimes in bad ways. It's bold. It embraces the whole concept of over the top Bond stuff, the whole formula of Bond just being crazy and over top extravagant. Everything crazy gadgets, the invisible car and all that stuff, the Ice Palace, which I thought was pretty cool. Some people say, that was really a stupid thing. I thought the Ice Palace was pretty good. And of course, the villain's got to be this megalomaniac guy again. For me, I like License to Kill. I like a regular guy. Hey, I got a drug empire. I want to run my little drug empire. That's real. That's something. I don't have to be running the world. I got to make a space weapon or whatever. Yeah. That kind of stuff, just crazy. Anyway, all right. So Jinx, we're up and down on Jinx. We don't know what we like her or not. I didn't mind Halle Berry as Jinx, but the dialogue. You're right, Vicky. Her lines. Hey, yeah, bad. All right. Let's see if there are any memorable moments in this movie. No. Love or hate the
Something
movie.
that I'll unfortunately never forget.
You love or hate the movie. It really is packed with some unforgettable elements, even though some, like you're saying, I think, Tom, you would like to forget. But
Yeah, I mean, I hate, I can't say hate enough. The diamond-faced henchman thing. I'm just totally hate him.
wow.
I'm quite surprised by that. I just don't think there's worse sort of characters, and not necessarily in this particular film, but in general. I don't have an issue with the character. I haven't got it with me, but I even
don't.
have a replica of him in my 30-year-old Bond collection
Wow.
with diamonds in his face.
Yes, yeah, it's the diamond. He himself is fine. It's the stupid diamonds.
I don't mind that the diamond blew up and they ended up in his face. What bothers me is he kept them there because that's hard to shave.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay. All right. Now, Vicky, you just mentioned you have a replica of him, and you've got a YouTube channel, The Bond Room Unlocked, and you've got some great stuff in there. And I've been into your Bond room, and it is quite impressive. So
Yeah,
kudos to you on that.
There's a bit more in there since you
Since I was there,
visited.
well, it's been a while. So
30 years of collecting. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
5 years or something since I was
So
there.
check out Vicky's channel,
Yep,
The
absolutely.
Bond Room Unlocked.
The Bond Room
Thank you.
Unlocked.
All right. Let's get to the bad. Well, let's turn this over to Tom and we'll just relax.
All right. And I'm going to start with the CGI, which was probably not where you figured I'd start. This movie relies heavily on some very questionable CGI, particularly in that parachute kite or whatever kind of surfing scene that was. And Lee Tamahori said at one point he wishes he didn't use CGI.
Yeah.
He said it was a hard stunt to pull off as a practical stunt.
Yeah.
But those CGI is pretty standard in movies today. When Die Another Day was released in 2002, VFX methods weren't as refined as they are today, and he wishes he could go back and do that again. And he takes full responsibility. And I agree with him. I mean, one of the big pluses of the Mission Impossible movies is the practical stunts. And yes, there is some CGI in Mission Impossible, but mostly to augment, not to make the stunt work. And this surfing scene was just terrible.
Yeah. I don't mind CGI when it's done well. And to be honest, I think Tamahori's just trying to get himself out of a hole. If you look at the CGI in the Lord of the Rings trilogy that came out around the same time, it's perfect. It's well done.
You're right. See, Vicky, I was going to say the same thing. In 2002, it wasn't horrible CGI technology.
No,
it was horrible in this movie.
Yeah.
But if you watch Lord of the Rings now, it still holds. It still holds up.
Yes.
You watch that scene now for Die Another Day, and it's like, well, you just laugh at it.
Yeah.
It's laughable. It's laughable.
Yeah. I mean, everyone remembers that about this movie, right?
That's right, yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
the thing that's so surprising is James Bond usually nails their production values. And it's amazing
Yeah.
to me that they got this one so wrong.
And let it go. That's the scary part. They
I
did
can't,
it and said, yeah, okay, well, yeah, I'll keep it.
yeah, and
It's
I
like,
can't let
wow.
it go either.
Yeah. Just the CGI stuff was enough to turn people off. True, solid James Bond fans turn them off on this movie in a big way. And many just can't get over it. You just can't get over how bad these scenes were. And they hate the movie and other reasons too. I'm sure Tom will get into some. But
Now I'm gonna actually surprise you here. The CGI work they did with the invisible car, I actually thought worked. Right. The big
yeah.
CGI problem I have is that surfing scene.
And
You
the
know,
whole invisible car talk.
whether you're a big fan of the invisible car or not, I actually think that was a better use of CGI in this movie than the surf scene was.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought the CGI stuff in the invisible car was pretty solid, actually. It actually looked good. I liked it. All right, let's look at the tonal quality of this movie. Are there any inconsistencies in that, Tom? I
No,
don't know.
none. When a movie like Die Another Day starts as a grounded, tough espionage thriller, like we get in that pre-title,
Yeah.
and then moves audaciously and quickly into a science fiction type movie, the movie loses the fundamental formula from the previous James Bond movies. And of course, Moonraker comes to mind as well. Another
Yeah.
solid beginning to the movie that they tried to get cute with, brought in sci-fi, and blew the movie.
Yeah, look back at From Russia with Love, Thunderball, Goldfinger, The Living Daylights, License to Kill, For Your
Yeah.
Eyes Only, The Spy Who Loved Me, etc., etc. These stuck pretty much to the James Bond formula.
And
Yeah.
Die Another Day just happened to just break the mold.
Yeah, well, that's true. I don't think there's any question about that. Now, there is nothing wrong with tweaking things to try to make them better. And so they tried, right? Certainly looking back, it is easy to see that this movie is not so great, according to Tom, especially.
Yeah.
But if you listen to Lee Tamahori, it really sounds like, even at the time, they knew it wasn't all that great. I mean, that's the thing. If you really listen to what he said, it really does sound like they knew it was all that great. But doing it as a practical stunt, like you said, was difficult. But my problem is they knew it wasn't great and they left it in.
Yeah, but some of the, okay, you just said that they knew it was going to be difficult. Some of the very best practical stunts are difficult. Look at that Asgard jump that Rick Sylvester did in The Spy Who Loved Me.
Yeah.
That was hard. I mean, that was a really hard stunt. It was practical. It was awesome. When it turns into one of the best stunts in the movie, in part in the series, in part because we all knew how hard that was.
Yeah.
And it's also too bad they had to do that lame recreation of the Union Jack parachute here.
Yeah.
You know, Sylvester's use of that thing was much more difficult and had a much better impact than what they did with it here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rick Sylvester did the fall in Meteora and For Your Eyes Only. I mean, he, falling down on the cable off the mountain. It's like, okay, that was a great practical stunt, not a CGI deal.
Not enough money for me to do any of those.
I fall on purpose. No. All right. Well, it was a callback, though, so you got to at least give him a little credit for a callback. But certainly, it's not as impressive, like you said, as the Spy Who Loved Me stunt, practical stunt. Now, you could highlight other areas in the movie where the tonal quality drags the viewer all over the place. The Madonna scenes, like you said, Vicky, the sword fight scenes. The transfiguration of Graves, a villain with a full face of diamonds. Okay, we talk about that. And there are lots of things that break the mold, and not in a good way. So, yeah, they broke the mold, but not for a better mold. That's the problem.
Okay, so let's move into the villain.
Gustav Graves is often criticised as one of the weaker Bond villains, lacking the menacing characteristics of previous Bond antagonists. Well, yeah. This might be true.
You thought he was weak.
I do think it was. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I actually think this to be true because I do think he's one of the weaker villains. Stromberg, who is in one of the best Bond movies, in certainly one of Roger Moore's strongest outings, if not maybe his best.
Yes,
was a weak villain as well. He starts in an underwater world and then forgets about living on the land, and he tries to create a nuclear war so he can accomplish An absurd goal.
Yeah.
Graves, I suppose, at least was using technology to get what he wanted, basically to wipe out the South Korean government. Now, in 2002, satellites and military satellites in particular were very sophisticated tools and maybe even weapons. So, in Die Another Day, this is not all that crazy, I suppose.
Yeah, but Icarus, I mean, it definitely was like trying to pay homage to Diamonds Are Forever. But I mean, this movie. I like Easter eggs, but this thing's really nothing more than a bad ripoff of earlier Bond movies. I mean, it's like why having a weaker villain behind all of this didn't help.
Yeah. I mean, the villain is weak, but the concept of a space weapon is, I mean, there are a lot of countries today experimenting with this stuff right now. I mean, so it's not all that crazy of a concept, but maybe the execution of it, yeah, okay, in the movie is not so good.
Personally, I would have just preferred Colonel Moon to have been the villain. I just couldn't believe the old face swap idea. Just
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah, Face Swap was done much better in the movie Face Off.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Because I mean, there was definitely they changed who they were, but
Yeah,
the change in this is just ridiculous.
Yeah. At least we had multiple Blofelds in Diamonds Are Forever, and they all looked the same. That was good. But this guy,
Yeah.
going from a Korea, it was a stretch.
for what you were saying there about Face Off, at least Travolta and Cage were trying to, act out one another, weren't
Yes.
they? So
Yes.
they were trying, and putting their acting prowess into the forefront there.
Yeah.
But you just don't, you just don't get this. It's. The more I think about it, sitting here, the more laughable it is. Actually, just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then give me those stupid diamonds in the face. It's just lame, lame, lame to me.
Yeah. Simple surgery could have removed the diamonds, and he would have had a nice collection of diamonds too after. It's like, hey, give one to the doctor, keep the rest yourself. What the heck? But yeah, keeping them in, that was kind of dumb. And then we got Madonna's theme song. Yeah, Vicky said okay, she was okay with the song. Yeah, some enjoy it, others feel the upbeat pop song kind of clashes with the whole darker concept of the movie or the opening sequence for sure. And personally, I think it's a good criticism. It's not in keeping with the theme of the music of the movie, I don't think. Look at Billie Eilish's No Time to Die theme, or Paul McCartney's Live and Let Die, or plenty of others, like For Your Eyes Only, The Spy Who Loved Me. These are all solid in keeping with the theme and the tone of the movie. Madonna, I don't know.
I disagree. I don't think. I think they must have signed her up, and then she said, "Look, as long as I can have a role in the film," which would have, I'd be quite happy if she wasn't in it. And I don't mind Madonna as a singer. In fact, I think the song that she did fit the opening sequence. It blends Euro clash with dance music. Now, I'm a '90s dance chick. That I was brought up on '90s dance music, so that may be why I don't mind it so much.
Okay.
But if you listen to the lyrics, it explores themes such as complete loss of self-identity and psychology. So it's Graves all over, really, when you really sort of listen to it. Very Sigmund Freud.
Yeah. Yeah. Dan,
Sigmund
I
Freud.
think it's a good point that we have a younger person on this episode with us, because you and I tend to not like much of the James Bond themes as the series progressed. And Vicky's point here may just justify and just be pointing out that the age of the viewer really matters for a James Bond movie experience, because they try to keep things to the time period.
Yeah, well, I like the point of the lyrics that Vicky brought on. Hey, it complete loss of self-identity, psychology, and all that. Okay, that might save it for me, and I'm going to re-listen to it.
Yeah, well, I think the thing is as well, around that sort of time, this is the type of music that Madonna was making. She'd moved on sort of from that 80s, when she first came out. She was doing a lot of this sort of repetitive dance type music. And, she's a popular icon figure. So I think that's probably why they went down that route.
Right? And Productions always got one of the top performers around for the
I
for their
think people
songs.
find it quite repetitive. I think they just keep hearing the die another day, die another day.
Mhm.
And I think that's it. But there is a little bit more to it. It's not my favourite. I'm not saying it's a favourite, but I don't dislike it. I don't, you know.
All right. Let's look at the gadgets, the over-the-top gadgets, and we'll just talk a little bit about this. So you have the complete transformation of Gustav Graves we talked about, which was certainly a stretch. The invisible car threw a lot of fans over the edge. Even for a Bond gadget, it was a little bit out there. However, we say in our episode about gadgets in the world is not enough and die another day, there was indeed legitimate experimentation going on before this movie came out with the concept of invisible cloaks. The Japanese had a video on this where a man wore this cape and it looked like you were looking right through him. So, yeah, the invisible car was a bit ahead of its time, but not totally implausible. So, I'm going to give them a little break on that because some of this stuff was really going on in the real world and it's gotten better now.
Do you know, I don't have an issue with the invisible car. And you know, it's my favourite scene in the whole film.
Ah,
Is
there you
when
go.
is when Q and Bond are in the subway. I just love the line
Yeah.
Maybe you've been down here too long.
and the look on Bond's face, and he looks and he looks really impressed as well when the car
Yeah.
is revealed to him. He looks really impressed with the adaptive camouflage feature.
Yeah.
You know, I just love that scene. I
Yeah.
almost wait for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
see,
Okay. That's
I
good.
think it's better in that scene than when it's used later in the movie. But in that scene with Q, I think it's really well done.
Yeah, and like I said, the CGI part of the chase and all that, nice line with the car, I thought it was pretty good. But let's look at the storyline because we talked
Oh,
about this
must
a little
we?
bit. Yeah, the storyline, if there is one, let's talk about that. I mean, is this a story about James Bond? Is he just a character in this story? And I think in a lot of ways, he's a character in this story. He's not the main focus. The rest of the story gets in his way, I think, in this movie. The villain, the production sets like the Ice Palace, the gadgets, just the events seem to have Bond as a player in the story and not the focus of the story. So I think there's truth in that, and many have complained about this element of the storyline. But I don't know, is it really a bad thing to do once in a while? Not make Bond the central focus? Look at Goldfinger. I mean, didn't that villain kind of stand much larger than life and overshadow Bond in Goldfinger? I think so. I think this is probably the closest to what we have here. But yeah, what dominated the movie? Big flashy visual effects, of course, super gadgets, crushed character development, and compelling storytelling. It was a mess. And all this could be looked at as a major distraction in this movie because it dominates the story and a bad story. So, yeah, Bond is a player in the game here in Die Another Day, and it's a bad game.
Yeah, I totally agree. Bond is overshadowed here. And maybe that's a good thing. The movie was so
I'd say
bad, in my
maybe.
opinion. Maybe it was good that Bond was just what you call the player in the game. I mean, any chance to pull back from the stench of this movie is probably good.
Disassociate himself with the movie.
I totally agree. I do think Bond is on the back burner. I think the film is bigger than Bond, and there's so
Yeah.
much going on. It's basically, for me, a film of two halves. When it gets to the Ice Palace, I think the film goes into meltdown.
Oh, Meltdown. I like that. Ice Palace, Meltdown. I like
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Yeah, Tom talked about the pulling back from the stench of the movie. Yeah, stench. That's a good word for this movie, I think. It's all true. It was overdone, and could it have been done better? Yeah, they could have done a lot of things better in this movie. So I think it could be tolerated to a degree, but not to a big degree.
Dan,
All right.
did you just say to a degree? I mean, to a degree, Icarus, the ice
Oh,
melting.
I get it.
I mean,
Yeah.
You know, that wasn't
That
that
was
wasn't an
accident.
intentional. Oh, I thought that was
No,
intentional. Okay. If it wasn't intentional, it was a bad one.
The writing here of this story does cause a lot of eyebrow raising.
I'm biting my tongue.
And not in a good way. Sometimes you raise your eyebrow going, wow, hey, that's pretty good. Not in this movie. You raise your eyebrows thinking, really? They wrote that and put that in the movie and kept it? Wow. So they're very unrealistic scenarios, but a lot of James Bond stories have unrealistic scenarios, and we get over it. We say, yeah, okay, we'll have our suspension of disbelief. But there were some cool things in there. The Jaguar and equipped with the machine gun on the rear deck, all that was good. Except, it's a convertible. I never understood why a villain or a spy is going to deck out a car like that and make it a convertible where you could maybe easily be shot. That was a little ridiculous. except, well, as I recall, though, Cube made one for Bond, if you remember, in the convertible BMW. Though he did make one for him once. So it's like, okay, maybe it's just a bad idea, but it's been done a couple of times.
Yeah, I actually like the ice chase, particularly the part outside on the ice, on the lake, not so much the inside stuff. It was filmed in Iceland on a frozen lake, and they had to construct a dam to keep the water out so the lake remained frozen. Now,
Wow.
the airbase Little Rissington in the UK was used for extra shots, and they created fake ice caps and mountains to give the suspension of belief that we are in Iceland.
Yeah, that's pretty good when they do that kind of stuff. And there's the Bond people, the Ian Productions folks. Who knows what Amazon will do? They were always fantastic with that. And you look at it and you go, man, how do they do that? So that's always impressive with any Bond movie.
Okay, now I'm going to come in talking about this convertible part that you just mentioned a minute ago, Dan.
Yeah.
I actually think that pretty much worked. I mean, now first, I have an affinity for Jaguars, so I may be a bit biased, but the way they had that gun mounted, I mean, remember, we've actually been in that car, we've seen it
All right,
and everything. So to me, getting that close up, I think helped. And it kind of made sense to me that it was a convertible because of the way they structured the gun on it. And so it works. And come on, that was a gorgeous car.
It's a gorgeous car.
Yeah.
No
And,
question.
It is.
What I think was odd was why you would have the top down when it's so cold outside. Having that car as a convertible in a warmer climate makes more sense. For me, I've got a Z3 and the top rarely gets lowered in the winter.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that Z3 or stuff.
You would be.
I sold it.
Yeah.
It was my car before. All right, you just mentioned your BMW Z3. Do you remember in GoldenEye, 1995, Brosnan's first outing as Bond? Yeah, his Z3 had lots of cute gadgets, an electronic communication system, smoke screen, machine guns, but it had a bulletproof driver's section. Yeah, so hopefully the villains and the henchmen shot at the door or the hood or the back of your seat. Heck, why aim at the upper torso where you might hit the person? We've got all this bulletproof stuff around you. I just think it's ridiculous.
Now,
Right.
I do have to say, I liked one modification that they made to the car to film those scenes in Die Another Day. And as a viewer, you would never know this. If you actually didn't experience the car firsthand,
Yes.
in order to fit all the stuff they did into that car, they
Zal's
had to
car,
remove
you're talking about
Zal's
Zal's
car.
car.
Zal's
Yeah.
car. Right. In order to fit all the stuff they did, they had to remove the gas tank. But then you've got a car that's got to get in a chase. So there was like some small portable, I don't remember if it was a 1 or a 2 gallon plastic gas tank in the trunk.
We
or the
opened
boot.
they opened the trunk for us to look in there, right? And there was this little, maybe a 2 or 3 gallon tank, right?
Yeah, and when you say trunk, we call it a trunk area.
Boot.
Other parts of the world call it a boot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But to me, when they open up the trunk and you see this little thing in there, it's like that made me laugh.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like
it
you're
was-
seeing how the
it was
sausage
clever.
is made.
Yeah. But, then again, Bond had to survive a CGI tidal wave, and there was the weapon that was a solar ray. We have seen something similar before in The Man with the Golden Gun.
And don't
So,
forget Diamonds Are Forever as well.
Yeah,
That's
and
true.
Diamonds Are Forever, exactly. And there are plenty more moments, too, that, you wonder and think, okay, they're kind of throwbacks. They're kind of, okay. You let them go with the writing. I like the throwbacks in the writing. Most of the writing, not so good.
I'm biting my tongue.
If you look at the movie in pieces, and maybe it should be blown up into pieces, and maybe that's it. I don't know. Like I do for Moonraker. Here, maybe the first half is a pretty good Bond story and formulaic, which is, in this case, good. like Moonraker. I think like 3/4 of the movie Moonraker is pretty solid Bond stuff. In Die Another Day, when we start into the second half, things get a little dicey.
Yeah,
So,
I would say here, once we leave the pre-title, not even the second half, once we leave the
okay.
pre-title, it gets dicey. Now,
Uh,
I will say one thing that impressed me, because when I talk about production values, I was just in Cadiz, Spain last month, and the way they shot some of the scenes for this movie that were supposedly done in Cuba was really well done. That area is really tight. And what they made that look like and how they built the set in that spot was really good production design and good
Yeah.
cinematography.
there you go. Another positive Tom's looking at for this movie. It's really, really nice. All right. Lastly, on the storyline, what did you think of Bond's interaction with women and the overall dialogue? We talked a little about the dialogue being pretty bad. To me and to many, it seemed forced. Even one of my favorite scenes, the homage to Honey Rider, when Jinx walks out of the ocean, a gorgeous setting and all, the dialogue there seemed a bit staged, forced. Bond did not seem as smooth as he usually is. And this is not Brosnan, but the writing. I think Brosnan overall was a good Bond. Tom, here's your chance to talk about Purvis and Wade because you love Purvis and Wade's writing.
I've been biting my tongue throughout. I mean, you've heard me rail against this team's writing in many of our episodes, and the badness really starts here. I mean, the world is not enough was fine, but they went downhill quickly. This and No Time to Die are the worst movies of their work, in my opinion.
Wow.
The movies from Die Another Day and No Time to Die, except for Casino Royale, were dreadful. And with Casino Royale, they had Ian Fleming's novels base to go off of.
Well,
and I think that's why it was a pretty decent movie, even with Purvis and Wade's writing. But here, this is Purvis and Wade in all their garbage.
Really? What else, Tom? I mean, nothing else about.
No, I'm gonna stop there. Vicky, what do you think?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, Jinx's dialogue is like the worst thing for me. And when you talk about the CGI surfing, go and have a look at the scene where Jinx dives off the cliff to escape Bond. How, as I said before, she couldn't save this character. That CGI is just as bad as the surfing scene.
Yeah. All right. I guess we can say that Die Another Day welcomes and displays a bit of excess. Lots of Bond movies do, though, really. So we can't critique it only for that. But here it seems not to work. That's the point. Some think it's all fun, while others think, bottom of my Bond list or near it. This is generally not on the top of people's James Bond movies to watch.
Unless your first Bond was this Bond.
This is true. I also have heard Bond fans say this is a beer and pizza movie.
Mostly beer, I think.
Lots and lots of beer.
All right. So
might even be something stronger than beer. I'm not sure.
So was Die Another Day shooting live rounds or blanks? Tell us what you think by commenting on our social media posts. There are some good elements to this movie as we discussed, but can it really be defended? Vicky?
It's a film of two halves. It has good and bad elements, but I will say this. I would rather watch it than No Time to Die.
Oh, right.
I'm clapping for you there on that one.
You're with us on that one.
Amen.
I agree. Okay. Tom?
Yeah, now for me, we often do these where we try to defend something that some people don't like. For me, there's no excuse or need to defend this movie, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay. All right. That said, it does have its defenders out there, a few. Some appreciate its boldness, its action sequences, and Pierce Brosnan's performance and performances overall. But it's not the most beloved entry in the franchise. What's your take? Underrated, kind of have a snack and watch fun kind of movie? Or beer movie like like Vicky said? Lots of beer or cocktails or Vespers maybe? Or a huge misstep that should have been called Die Today, right here and now.
No, that was No Time to Die.
The defense rests. If there was a defense. That's a wrap of our attempted defense of Die Another Day. Thank you, Vicky, for joining us on this one. It's great to have you back. Fantastic.
Great to have you back, Vicky. And again, can you tell us again what your social media contact stuff and your site is?
Yeah.
Yes, so I am the Bond Room Unlocked. I have a YouTube channel, a Facebook page, and you can also find me on Instagram.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks for joining us again.
You're welcome.
This has been Dan
And Tom.
And Vicky.
of SpyMovieNavigator.com and our show, Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. Go subscribe to our show right now. That helps us out a lot. Thanks for listening. We do appreciate it. Thanks.